we are a biotech in ophthalmology. So if you contract both words, biotech,
Ah,
ophthalmology, that's Biophta.
wow. So, so John, maybe the first question that I had was I was going through the website, and one of the things that we have found in the past is the website says or talks some portions about the innovation, but it does not give a complete picture of what is really happening. So, one of the things that came to my mind was are you guys working on a new treatment for ocular conditions, or is it a new method of delivery for treatment?
Well, all the stories started with a very simple statement is that the use of eye drops for treating the eye is not new. We are using eye drops since 2000 years, but it's still massive. More than 10% of the Western population use eye drops every day, and sometimes even multiple times a day. And for that reason, many pharma companies are developing injectable implants. And these allow a sustained release of drugs over a week or sometimes months. But the problem of injections is that quite painful and invasive. And next to that, 36 million of people lose sight every year, despite the efficient pharmaceutical treatment already in the market. So this was the starting point. And in Biophta, we refuse this status quo because we think that we must do better than just drops or needles to treat the eye. Why? Because even the most efficient pharmaceutical treatment in the world won't work if you don't respect the prescription. That seems pretty obvious, but it is the number one unmet medical need in ophthalmology, which is to respect the doctor's prescription. Um, I will just take one example, a very common disease named diabetic macular edema. That's a retinal complication of diabetes. And these people need to receive injections for protecting the retina uh, 3, 4 times a year. And needless to tell you that, of course, diabetes is a chronic disease. Who can respect such a treatment regimen? 3, 4 injections per year, lifelong, without missing any dose. And a direct consequence is that, generally speaking, in ophthalmology, half of the patients don't respect their prescription, leading to an irreversible loss of vision. So our invention lays into a 2 millimeter mini tablet. That's a very small tablet. We call that an ophthalmic insert. And this insert is directly applied on the surface, exactly in the same way as you would do with a simple contact lens. And the technology take its roots in a bioadhesive polymer, a new family of polymer. The first thing they do is at first they gellify instantly when they come in contact with the tear film. And in the meantime, they develop a very strong adhesion to the eye surface for 7 days. So we have this small hydrogel pellet that sticks to the eye for 7 days and release a continuous amount of drug to the eye for a week period of time. So there are multiple indications that could be addressed with this technology. Of course, the greatest disruptions comes when replacing injections for the retina by a topical and self-applied treatment. So we have two programs ongoing. This first program in retina, and our most advanced program is in glaucoma. The second program is in glaucoma, this time in replacement for eye drops. And the reason why is that glaucoma allows us to shortcut the normal registration process. And we validated that with the FDA, that we have an abridged registration procedure. And the second reason is that glaucoma in a phase 1 on healthy volunteer will still allow us to have some efficacy data because we will measure the reduction of intraocular pressure for safety reasons. But intraocular pressure is the efficacy marker of our drug. So in phase 1, we get safety tolerance, but also efficacy.
Thank you, John, for that summary. And I think that makes sense. Glaucoma is a very, very common disease. And of course, as you mentioned, I mean, if the pressure reduces after treatment, I mean, that is a marker of efficacy. Now, there was one question, and forgive me for this, but I'm asking from a layman perspective. I mean, you talked about hydrogel being adhered to the membrane of the eyes, and then there is release of the treatment that goes on for 7 days continuously. Now, does the hydrogel change or affect the eyesight also till the time it is there in the eye? I mean, does it
Not
affect
at all.
any?
Not
Not at
not at all, because in fact, the during the application process, what we do is that we pull slightly on the eyelid, and then when you look up, we apply the insert on the white part of the eye.
all.
The insert is, and when you release back your eyelid, the insert is underneath the eyelid, so you don't even see it. So there
Understood.
is no specific problem with that. What happened is that after the initial application, you will feel somehow the presence of the insert in your eye for approximately 10 minutes.
Ah,
And after this initial 10 minutes, you don't feel anything. You don't even remember you have something in the eye. You don't feel, you don't see you. And probably this initial 10 minutes delay is the time it needs to be jellified, hydrated, so you don't realize you have it in the eye anymore.
I think 10 minutes everybody can live with that. So it's not a long time, and I think, I mean, it's solving a very major problem, which is the efficacy part. Of course, is there. I mean, nobody can take that away, but I think it's the psychology of patients not adhering to treatment routines and regimes that have been prescribed to them. I mean, that is one of the biggest problem. I have seen that with everyone. I mean, however careful you are. I mean, there are Internet of Things like technology which reminds you that, hey, I mean, you need to take this gel right now, and then you get a notification in your mobile phone that it's time to take your gel. So all of those things are there, but still people miss on their regimen, their doses.
No, exactly. There were many. The non-adherence in ophthalmology is very well documented. There are lots of published studies on that topic, and one is particularly interesting. It was a work done by David Friedman from Harvard Medical School, and what he did, he put some little chips in a bottle of eye drops. So he could monitor silently, he could monitor each time the person was putting on his eye drops. And then he was interviewing each of the patient. Did you take your eye drops? Oh yeah, I respect very well my eye drop treatment. And or some of them were saying, no, I missed a little bit, but not every time, but almost all the time I was taking my eye drops. And then he compared what the feeling, the perception of the patient about their adherence to the real data of the chip of the bottle, and there were a massive difference. Even
Wow.
though you have the perception to be taking your eye drops regularly, in reality, it could be very different. So, yeah, we know that at least minimum half of the patients don't respect their prescription in terms of eye drops, but in terms of injections as well. People may think because you have to go to the doctor to get your needle, people will respect that. Yes, they do for the first year of treatment, and for the second year, they get fed up. They get fed up. It's painful. It's stressful. You have to go to the hospital. The day after, you can't work. So people don't respect, and it's down to approximately 50% of the patient in the second year of treatment who are not respecting their injections. And it has a direct consequence on the sight because studies also measure the loss of chance, the loss of visual acuity that is related with that non-adherence.
That makes complete sense. I think it's something which is a common observation. I mean, you don't need somebody from Harvard to tell you that. I have seen it day in and day out with my parents, with my relatives. I mean, that they tend to miss any of these dosages nowadays. Maybe one question that I wanted to ask you, John, was, so how did you narrow down this specific problem statement? I mean, I know you have a background in ophthalmology. I mean, you have been working in that sector related to eye and its treatment for a very long time. But what was that eureka moment? When did you observe that this is the problem that I want to solve? This is where I want to start working on
You know,
things.
when I've always been working in ophthalmology since the past 20 years, so
Yes.
I talk to many, of course, patients and ophthalmologists. And when you talk to ophthalmologists, for instance, a glaucoma specialist, um, they will all tell you when a patient come back to me and I see that the treatment didn't work. There is still the sight going less and less. the glaucoma making more damage on the retina, despite I prescribed earlier a good treatment that should be effective. So the treatment is proven to be ineffective on my patients. And every ophthalmologist will tell you, I'm totally unable to tell you if it's because the drug is ineffective or is it because the guy didn't take his eye drops, didn't take the treatment. It's impossible to know. And it was a triggering point for all that. And then talking to patients, because we were worried, okay, these guys, they are using eye drops. To what extent they will change from eye drops to putting a finger in the eye to apply the insert. And some of these people tell you, not some, all of the people told us, well, it seems nothing. You have the bottle of eye drop in the pocket. You put it on a few times a day. It's not a problem. I can't stand it anymore. It's been 30 years that I use these stupid eye drops every day. I cannot stand it anymore with the threat of if I don't do it correctly, I will lose my sight. So if I need to learn to put your insert, perhaps it will be difficult for me the first 1-2 months, but I can live with that as long as it is one time per week instead of
Yes,
several times a day. I really want to have access to that. So it was a triggering point of all the story, and an important demand, both from the doctors and also from the patients.
understood, understood. That makes sense, and I think it's a problem statement that is rooted very much in practical implications. I mean, that is something that we have seen day in and day out. One of the questions that I had was, now there are already set procedures that have, like you mentioned, I mean, from the past 30 years, 20 years, you have seen that there are eye drops and there are injections, and then there are maybe surgical treatments that happen for these kind of ophthalmological conditions. How do you disrupt, even if you have a disruptive technology at hand? I mean, will the medical community be open enough to accept something like this very, very readily? I mean, what is your experience so far in terms of penetrating the regular treatment that is happening?
Well, it very much depends on the type of disease that we initially target. For glaucoma, yes, I think there is a great acceptance from the medical community on this type of treatment modalities that we propose for treating glaucoma and for getting a replacement to eye drops. So there is no issue with that, or we did not detect. There is even a very large demand from the doctor. The doctors, they know and they tell you in glaucoma, we don't need new drugs. We need an efficient drug delivery to the eye. This is the number one unmet medical need in ophthalmology, which is to guarantee a good compliance to treatment for glaucoma. So there is no issue with that. But as long as you go to other disease, for instance, diabetic macular edema, for instance, AMD, age macular related degeneration, these diseases are currently treated with injections.
Yes.
And injection is painful, it's time consuming for patients, but it's also money for doctors. Each
Yes.
time they perform an injection, they can
Yes.
receive a fee. So introducing that to some part of the medical community may be difficult because some of them may tell you, yeah, but I like very much that the patient applies their treatment to themselves, but it's less money for me. So that's why also we start with glaucoma. There is no conflict here. And once we have a step in the market, perhaps extend on other disease such as retinal disease.
Understood. Makes sense. One question that I had was, of course, from the investment side, you have just finished a couple of months ago, one of the investment rounds you are well invested into. Now, usually what I have seen as a trend in the medical devices or in general in the medical field is that there are already big players, large players that are there in this domain. And then there are startups who are working on technology which are groundbreaking, which are disruptive. And ultimately, both of these players collide at one point of time in the future. And there is a network available to you, and there is a technology available to them, to the bigger players. Are you also going on that path where you want to collaborate with bigger players, use their network, and then penetrate into a bigger market as compared to working as a standalone entity, but having a very good technology and you want to test yourself the market out? I mean, what is it that you're going for in the future?
So we have a very nice technology, I think. Like everybody, I have the best startup in the world, like every startup founder. But we really think that we can bring something additional to ophthalmology, to patients, and to the medical community. So, in a nutshell, what we want is that this technology comes to the market. We want to make it available to the largest number of people. That's the goal. And we are very much aware that staying alone as a standalone startup, very little startup, it would make things more difficult to diffuse the technology across the world. So we are very much aware that a collaboration with a large pharma company who are already active in ophthalmology is a must. So what is the way we should do it? There are different routes that are possible. Clearly, we are actively talking to the largest pharma companies in ophthalmology since many months. We're talking to Alcon, we're talking to AbbVie, we're talking to Santen, we're talking to the French Théa Pharma. So all of them, we are having active discussions. And um, uh, there are different ways this company approach such a collaboration. The first and the easiest is the ones telling us, okay, what you're going, your first program in glaucoma, your second program in retina, we are very interested. We would like to discuss a potential license on your glaucoma treatment once you get the first initial clinical data. So that's the first possibility. The second possibility to collaborate with them is, okay, you have a nice vehicle, you have a nice insert to bring drugs to the eye. And we, as a pharma company, we have a portfolio of drugs. So is there a way that we could formulate our drugs within your insert? Can we collaborate, such as a co-development or a common development of a new pharmaceutical that will melt both technology? So that's the second approach. And the third approach are the largest company who are telling us we have a corporate venture arm. We would be interested perhaps to put some money in your company next time you complete a round of investment, let us know. So there are different approaches to them, but for the moment, we keep every opportunities open. Nothing is fixed, but all discussions keep advancing.
Makes sense. I think, I mean, all of these three approaches are something that have been used and have been successful in the past for collaboration. I think there are two questions that come to my mind. One question is on the second approach that that has been suggested to you, which is using your insert, which has a new class of polymer. Can that be a technology that can expand apart from ophthalmology to other drugs, maybe other treatments? I mean, is that a possibility in terms of technology being applicable in adjacent application areas?
Yeah, no, that's a very wise question. Thank you for asking. Of course, this polymer technology could have many other applications outside of ophthalmology. No later than this week, I was discussing with a large industrial company who wanted to tell us, oh, perhaps the use in osteoarthritis, we could inject it into the knees. So that's another possibility. At the moment, we are a small company. We don't have the bandwidth to deal with other projects. Our goal is to focus on the initial program and to bring it to clinic as quickly as possible to make the proof that it works in humans and the technology is validated. However, yes, as the next step, there would be an opportunity to explore other indications. We've been approached, for instance, by veterinary medicine companies who would like to use it for the treatment of pets. So that's also an opportunity that we could look at. So there are many different ways to diffuse this technology, and for sure we are very attentive to additional applications that we could bring.
Understood. Understood. And I mean, I've seen in the past in this domain that sometimes when you're focusing on one therapeutic area and there are other applications of your technology in other areas, IP comes into play. Like, for example, you license your patented technology to somebody else, let them do research, and you get a cut of what they ultimately develop. Is that something which is on the table in your future, where you want to leverage your IP and then let others work on adjacent areas apart from ophthalmology?
Yeah, and beyond the question of intellectual properties, I would take a larger view, which is barrier to entry. How do you protect your
Yes.
own territory? And because our technology and the polymers we are using, they are not easy to copy and to reproduce. It took more than 20 years to
Wow.
make this polymer right and to have a stable formulation and synthesis. And what we patented is a third generation of polymers. So, in a nutshell, if somebody tries to copy us tomorrow, well, good luck with that. In addition to that, we have three families of patents that we own that are exclusive to protect our technology. Uh, so that's a good starting point. But what I really want you to keep in mind about our IP strategy is that we see it as a dynamic process.
Mhm.
With new patents, each time we go to a new indication and new application, because you understood that there are many other eye diseases that could be addressed with this technology. Each time we target a new one, will be subject to a new patent application.
Wow. I mean, I think from a third party perspective, what I see is when the possibility of the applications that you have of your technology, the method of delivery and the polymer insert that you have developed. I mean, just the IP itself that you keep on developing dynamically is going to be much more valuable in the near future. I mean, that's something that I can imagine very, very well. But I understand that you have a larger vision, and the vision is to bring this technology to as many people as possible and as quickly as possible. We're talking about quickly. And of course, you talked about phase one trials going on for glaucoma and for the other indications. Now, it's a time consuming process, clinical trials, checking the efficacy and getting it passed through the regulatory authorities. What happens in meantime? I mean, does it require a lot of patience, and how do you keep the investors interested while these processes go on?
Yeah, every startup follows the same path, which is constantly to raise money. And when we raise money, we embark the investor in a journey. And the journey, you tell them, okay, this is where you enter in the company with a certain maturity of the development, with a certain degree of development, and with the investment that you make into the company. This is what we will do, and this is where we will take the company in terms of development. So you can see that by doing so, we increase the value of the company. Of course, when we go further in the development, when we de-risk further the technology, the value of the company is more than before you invest. So, and you have to take some time checking with them that you are perfectly in line with their investment thesis, that the story, the equity story that you build is comfortable with them. So that's the point. And once they embark, yeah, they are convinced, and we have a common goal is to go to the next step. And once you reach this following step, this next step of development, then there are different solutions. Either you raise again money, but then your valuation continues to go up, or some investors may want to exit and get their money back. But these are very much dependent on what the type of investor and who invests in the company. So that's important. But the main goal should be to keep adding value and creating value with the company.
That makes sense. That's a very plausible answer. I think.
But yes, the development of new pharmaceutical, the biotech journey to get new drugs on the market is a long administrative process, very much cash intensive activities, because
Yes.
the further we go, the more expensive it gets. We start with a study of 30 healthy volunteers. The next
Yes.
step would be a second study of 45 patients. The next step after is a study with hundreds of patients. So
Yes.
the more you advance, the more money you need to achieve the development.
That is the usual process. Although I mean, you'll get some patent term adjustments and extensions when it goes through, and you still will have the market monopoly on this technology at least. But I think it is a long process. You have to be patient, and you're right. I mean, the type of investors, they're a different breed when they're investing in long term as compared to having a vision of getting short term exits and then trying to
Yeah,
get it.
exactly. We started initially with a group of business angels who have limited amount of cash to put in the company, but altogether 1.5 million euro is that we get from them. We tried in a parallel to get some non-dilutive funding, such as grants, subsidies, public subsidies. So altogether, that brings us to 3-4 million euro. Recently, we raised the second round of funding of the company. Here we get to specialized investors, such as venture capital, but specialized in deep tech, in early stage projects. And this seed round altogether was for an amount of 6.5 million euro. So that start to be more important. The next step is to raise as a Series A between 10 and 15 million euro. So each time it's more, and each time it's not the same investors, not the same amount of money that invested
Yes.
for them, and it's not the same level of uncertainty. The business angels they accept very well a high degree of uncertainty because you are at the very beginning of
Yes.
the journey. Uh, Venture capitalists will need more guarantees and to check more if the technology. So for each step there is a different type of investor.
That makes sense. That makes sense. And that's a very pragmatic approach in looking at one step at a time and then going forward and executing your strategy from there on. Now, are there some inspirations, some processes, some principles that you follow, John, to keep grounded and to make sure that you're going one step at a time? Because I mean, in the startup world, and in general, when it is a cash intensive startup, when every next stage is something that can be a make or break, how do you keep yourself straight, focused on the line? I mean, what is it that you follow?
Well, it's a mix of two things. First, as you rightly said, you have to keep being focused on your objective. You have one goal, and this should be your northern star that you follow. So that's very important because, in addition, when we have a platform technology like we do, um, um, you can be tempted to do, I do a little bit
Yes.
of this. Oh, there is another interesting use. Oh, you mentioned that outside of ophthalmology, we could do something. So, and if you do all that, you will go nowhere. So you have to focus on the project
Yes.
and that. And the second component, I told you that's a mix of two things, is a little bit contradictory with what I just said, is that we have to be open. We have to remain open to new opportunities.
Mhm.
And you have to know that the journey of the startup is everything but straight. Not straight. You will always have some change. In the world of startup, we say that we pivot all the time to
Yes.
adapt our model, to adapt to new opportunities, and to keep open. For an investor, there is nothing worse than an entrepreneur that is not listening to others, not listening to words, not listening to the advice he can given. So we are very humble in our role. We listen very much to everybody that gives us some advice and help us in the development. So that's the way, at least the recipe I follow for driving our business forward. So, but yes, you have to be very resilient. Always problems, always issues to solve. And as I said, the journey of the startup is not straight.
And in your experience, I mean, so you have background both from the technology side and also from the business side or the strategy side. What is more important in this situation when you have had some fundings, you are moving on to the next step? Is it the strategy side that's more important, or is it the R&D and the technology side, the team that you have who are working on this, more important at this point of time?
Well, there are two things that should permanently advance in parallel. Of course, the science, that's what is fueling the company and that's creating value. We have to generate results. We have to deliver the roadmap. And in the meantime, the business part, the cash. We have to get some cash to fund the research. So, and to get the business opportunities for later. So these both need to advance in parallel. So that's the theory. The reality is totally different. In very frequent time, we got a very good result, but nobody is interested by us, so we have no cash at all. And in some other moment, we have lots of cash, we have lots of subsidies, but we fail to deliver the result, or we have difficulties in the R&D side. So, and that's the reality. We initially, for this company, we are two co-founders uh, creating the company with very complementary profile. And I think that the greatest strength of Biophta is to have such a complementary founding team. Because my partner, Jean Cuinet, his name Jean as well, he's a renowned biopharma researcher with 20 years developing new drugs, leading large R&D team in big pharma like Novartis, like Next Pharma, like Stalergen. So we have experience of bringing and developing new drugs to the market. And from my side, I'm also pharmacist, but my experience is 20 years in ophthalmology, where I created company and steered and developed companies in the field of ophthalmology. So the business side and the ecosystem of ophthalmology, I know very well. And these were very complementary because at the time we raising money, I very much focus on the business. I'm my partner focus on pushing the R&D and getting the development right. So that's a great strength and a chance that we have here.
That's a great combination. And I think, I promise you, this is going to be my last question. Since you gave the background of both of you, I mean, very similar names, John. But is there a time when your founding partner has a different opinion on how to move forward as compared to you? Although business and strategy and ecosystem being your domain of expertise, but there may be times when he may have other opinions on how to take this forward, and vice versa. I mean, how do you resolve such type of, I would say, discussions?
Yeah, I think that's very important in the life of the company to confront opinion, to put together information, but not only with my co-founder. We have a board of directors with our investors, and they may bring also value with additional ideas and additional advice in terms of strategy of the company. So these investors will not take an active part in the operational management of the company, but they oversee the general strategy and they can really add value on that. So and it's always good to confront the view of my partner Jean Cuinet, very technical, very focused on science. My view, which is more focused on ophthalmology and the business and the trends that I see with talking with doctors or with the industry. The experience of VCs who grew many other startups and who knows the difficulties and the potential threat that we could have. So and believe me, we have very interesting discussion in the board of directors
Yeah.
meeting, and this is what adds value to the company. I'm very humble. I don't pretend to know everything. I'm an expert in nothing, but I know a little bit everywhere. And my role as a CEO is to do the synthesis of that and to put everything into a pot and to deliver the strategy, the right strategy for creating value for investors.
That seems to be a common profile of all CEOs who are leading the strategy side of things, the business side of things. I mean, all of them seem to be an expert generalist. That, I mean, you know a bit about everything so that you can use those experiences to move ahead. Even if you know little bit about everything, I mean, you still have that knowledge, that I would say exposure to use all the resources at hand and then understand, I mean, where to go. Is there a reason for that, John, in your experience, that most people who tend to lead from the strategy side and the business side tend to be expert generalist? Is it the exposure that brings, or is it something else?
No, I think there is not one good profile um, for leading a company or being a CEO. There are lots of different possible profile, but there is one need is to know your own limits. Where do I need to get some additional expertise? Where do I need to get the help of a specialist of that domain because I'm not competent anymore beyond that limit? And that's very important because, and that's also why it is important to know a little bit of everything, because if you know a little bit, you know enough to know that you're not competent anymore beyond that limit. And so my role is really to look for the best experts where we need them for each of the topics we have to treat, whether it is a technical topic, a business topic, or anything else.
That's a refreshing view, and I think that makes sense. So, John, that was the last question. Is there any question that I should be asking you, but because of my lack of exposure to your business or less knowledge of it, I'm not asking, which you want to highlight?
No, I think we covered well the topic. I hope at least I made you aware of this topic of improving vision and fighting blindness, which is a very important topic to us. So I hope at least to have made you aware of that.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much for all your questions, and yeah, I hope people find it interesting.
John, thank you very much. But very, very good talking to you. I think I got educated about a lot of things. Got educated about strategy. I got educated about the psychology of patient and the doctors and the dynamics that are there. I also understood a bit about when to collaborate and what kind of models are available in the medical field, so on and so forth, and how and when pharma companies or big medical devices company take interest. So thank you for all those educations. And most importantly, I think you really have a disruptive technology and it has the power to affect, I would say, patients in general, not considering the business side of things. It is a good technology to have and then to work with. So that's in general one of the takeaways that I'm